I'm disappointed in you. You just got lucky this time. Make sure you understand that your mistake could have damaged our relationship with the client. Director Henry said, letting out a big sigh. I said once more, I'm sorry, and returned to my desk. Since I started working, this was the first time I'd made such a big mistake and been reprimanded like this. My colleague Sean came over and suggested maybe you should take a break. Usually I could brush off his sarcasm, but today it hit me hard. I watched him walk away with a snort and let out a small sigh. I'm Tom Williams. I'm working in sales at a trading company. Since my teenage years, I've been involved in track and field and have always enjoyed the moments when I felt my growth from my daily efforts. After graduating, I chose a sales job to utilize the stamina I developed through my athletic training. I studied the products I was in charge of since my early years in the company, observed and learned from senior salespeople. I soon established my own style, acquiring new business partners and earning respect from my boss. My performance was always among the top, but there was one colleague I considered a rival, Sean. I became aware of him as a rival after I started working independently. When my name first appeared in the monthly performance ranking, his was just above mine. Despite my hard work, it was frustrating. We acknowledged each other as rivals after he approached me about it. Since then, his performance has unavoidably caught my attention, and I have analyzed it closely. We respect each other and seek advice when needed. Of course, when he asks me for advice, I try to listen intently. In this way, we began to compete while supporting each other. We often exchanged sarcastic remarks, but it was enjoyable because it was with him. When we both started competing for the top spot, Director Henry began to have high expectations of us. Every time he asked how things were going, it fueled my ambition to get promoted before Sean. Probably the same for him. Although Sean was sitting at a desk far away, I could feel his enthusiasm for his work, and I worked hard to keep up with him. One day, after returning from fieldwork, I saw Sean standing near the reception. Thinking he was doing it again, I sighed and hurried over to him. He had recently developed a crush on Emily, the receptionist. She was renowned for her beauty. For her beauty, both inside and outside the company, fitting perfectly as the face of the company at the reception. Many had confessed to her, but I never heard of a successful case. Hey, Emily, why don't you have lunch with me sometime? We talk every day, no need to be shy, right? Well, I've been really busy lately, and I don't like leaving my mother alone too much. I didn't know how many times I'd heard a similar conversation. She replied, clearly bothered by Sean's advances, but he didn't seem to notice. Love is blind, but I never expected it to be this much. As usual, grabbed Sean by the collar, pulling him away from Emily, and apologized on his behalf. Emily sighed in relief, smiled faintly, and nodded in thanks. I dragged the complaining him back to our sales floor. Once we were far enough away from Emily, I let go of his arm. He straightened his rumpled suit with a scowl. Look, Sean, I've told you a million times your approach is totally backfiring. How many times has she turned you down already? You realize she's just being polite with that forced smile, right? Geez, Tom, you just don't get women. She is just shy, that's all. You have to keep giving chances to such ladies. Instead, you should realize you're the one getting in the way. Seemingly exasperated, he spread his hands wide and shook his head dramatically. I felt irritated with him for not listening, but remembering Emily's strained expressions, I couldn't just ignore the situation. Right now, she is still smiling, so no trouble happened. I personally think Sean's going too far. I hope it doesn't escalate into a bigger problem. Watching him still talking about understanding women, I let out a small sigh. One day, fed up with Sean's unchanging tactics, I decided to stay late at work to finish some urgent paperwork. When I finally finished, it was already dark outside. Stiff from sitting, I decided to have a little luxury to treat myself. I headed to a new pub I had noticed in an alley near the office. As I excitedly opened the door, a loud voice suddenly filled the room. Enough already. Can he take a hint? I thought to myself, I can't just yell at him in front of clients at the reception desk. Get a clue. The source of the commotion was a woman sitting at the counter. Perhaps due to the late hour or her presence, the pub was otherwise empty. As I hesitated, the female pub owner gave me a resigned smile. After being greeted, I couldn't just walk out. I recognized her and blurted out her name, Emily. She noticed me and chuckled, saying my name, Tom. The pub owner let out a relieved sigh and offered to buy me a drink if I would keep her company. It turns out she had been venting over drinks for a while. I decided to listen to her, thinking it must be fate. As she poured out her frustrations, I realized how much Sean's persistence troubled her. She had been forcing a smile because she didn't want to tarnish her image as the face of the company. When she finished her rant, I casually asked about her rough way of speaking. She looked away awkwardly. It turns out she used to be a bit wild in her student days. After her mother, a single parent, fell ill, she turned her life around, wanting to repay her mother's kindness. She decided to get a job at the best company possible in order to earn money for living expenses and treatment costs. She dyed her flashy hair black, watched her language, and always kept a calm smile. Because of that, she was able to get a job at her current trading company after graduating from university and was given the position of receptionist, the face of the company. Her mother, who had been hospitalized for a while, was now back home and managing her health. Emily thought she could handle anything for her mother's sake, but Sean's advances had worn her out, driving her to seek solace in her friend's pub. As she finished her story, she smiled sadly. "Disappointed?" I asked. "You must have thought I was a prim and proper receptionist, but here I am, loving flashy clothes and nails and speaking so crudely." "Not at all," I reassured her. "What you like is your choice. What I find wonderful is that you clearly separate your work and private life." Hearing her story, I expressed my interest in seeing her in her favorite styles. A bit more relaxed from the drinks, I apologized for speaking out of turn, but she just laughed it off. We chatted for a while longer, and thinking of her trouble with Sean, I suggested one thing. What if you kept a pen-sized voice recorder in your outfit pocket during work in order to gather evidence of his persistent advances? I explained. Emily blushed in embarrassment and apologized for not being familiar with machines such as computers. I was surprised considering how smoothly she handled clients. It turns out she was originally meant for an office job, but was assigned to reception due to her poor computer skills. Though she managed to learn the basics, still any error made her panic, and she discreetly asked for help while maintaining her composure. Learning this new side of her, I couldn't help but chuckle. When I mentioned giving her a high-quality pen recorder as a gift, she initially panicked and refused. But after I explained I just wanted to help her out with her troubles, she finally agreed. As we left the pub, she asked me to keep our conversation a secret. Gazing at her worried face, I nodded and assured her I would, making her blush and smile. A few days later, the pen recorder I ordered online for Emily arrived. I set it up for immediate use and handed it to her when I returned from my fieldwork. She quickly understood its purpose and thanked me, slipping it into her pocket. Thankfully, I had chosen a simple model and she learned how to use it right away. As I was about to leave, Sean suddenly approached me. "Hey Tom, why did you just give Emily a pen? Sneaking in a gift like that is pretty low." "It's a gift, sure, but there's no hidden agenda. It's just a thank you for calming down that grumpy client the other day and getting them on our side." I quickly covered up, winking at Emily and pushing Sean. He still seemed dissatisfied, but he didn't say anything else and silently made his way to the sales department floor. I was relieved to have avoided his prying. About a week later, I went to negotiate with a long-standing client of our company. I was confident about the materials I had prepared, but when I spread them out on the table, my heart sank. They were not what I had intended to bring. Despite double-checking before leaving the office, I quickly apologized to the client. Fortunately, the client laughed it off, assuming I was just tired. I rescheduled and reported the mix-up to Director Henry. He listened silently and then glared at me. "I'm disappointed in you. You were just lucky this time. Understand that your mistake could have worsened our relationship with the client." He sighed heavily. I apologized again and returned to my desk. It was the first time I had made such a big mistake and been scolded since I started working. Sean, always ready with a sarcastic comment, suggested I take a day off. His words, which I can usually brush off lightly, cut deeper than usual. Watching him walk away, I let out a small sigh and decided maybe he was right. After that, I calmed down a bit and decided that what he said might be true, so I decided to take his advice and take a day off. I decided to take a day of paid leave. As soon as the scheduled time arrived, I left the sales department floor. At the reception, Emily asked if I was okay. Apparently, I looked very pale. I managed to smile and assured her that I was fine. She smiled back kindly and told me not to overdo it. This allowed me to rest my body slowly for a day and return to work feeling refreshed. I apologized again to Henry and was about to start working when a colleague approached me awkwardly. When I asked him what was wrong, he handed me something. The moment I saw it, my eyes widened in shock. That evening, Sean was called into the conference room where Henry and I were waiting. Sean, thinking it was about a promotion, entered cheerfully, but scowled upon seeing me. Henry confronted him, asking if he had swapped the documents that Tom was supposed to bring. That morning, my colleague had given me the documents I was meant to have on that day. He told me they were found mixed in with papers that Sean had asked him to dispose of. Even though I didn't think so, we got permission from Henry and checked the security camera footage. It showed Sean lurking around my desk and bag when I stepped away, and then swiftly taking the documents from my bag. Henry was stunned by the footage, leading to Sean's summoning. But what really troubled Henry was Emily coming forward with evidence of Sean's persistent advances. He tried to deny swapping the documents, but Henry then asked him about his approach to Emily. Sean tried to get away with it, saying he had no intention of doing so. Sighing as if out of options, Henry presented evidence of both the document swap and Sean's excessive approaches to Emily. Shocked, Sean stood up abruptly from his chair and apologized for his actions. He explained that he had gotten carried away and apologized sincerely. However, when it came to his approach to Emily, he believed that they had mutual feelings for each other. Henry reminded Sean that imposing his feelings unilaterally without considering the other person's feelings only causes fear, and that he should have been more sensible. Upon hearing this, Sean collapsed to his knees. He was later transferred to a regional branch. Emily received an apology from the company's higher-ups and accepted it, relieved that she wouldn't have to encounter Sean at work again. I heard through the grapevine that Emily actually went to meet Sean on his last day at the headquarters. However, she was only trying to clear the air and not reciprocate his feelings. Sean tried to cling to her, but was met with a stern glare and a loud scolding. He was told not to trouble others anymore. Feeling deeply hurt by her words, Sean stood frozen in place for a while. After resolving these issues, Emily invited me to the same pub. She asked me to arrive first and wait for her. Puzzled, I waited, chatting with the owner until Emily walked in. Although usually so composed at work, she was dazzling in a glamorous outfit, unrecognizable from her office persona. My heart raced as we clinked our glasses in a small toast. She smiled and thanked me for my help, causing my cheeks to relax in happiness. Trying to hide my nervousness, I asked about her attire. She blushed and smiled, saying, "You said you wanted to see the real me, right? And I want to be my true self when I tell you this." I looked confused, and then, staring right at me, she boldly confessed, "Will you go on a date with me?" I was so surprised that I froze, but the other patrons in the pub started cheering us on. Realizing she wasn't averting her gaze, I made up my mind and gently took her hand. The pub erupted in applause and Emily grinned happily, showing her teeth.